Hello and welcome to the Quick News Daily Podcast, where we give you all the latest news in under 20 minutes. No fluff, no filler, just news made for the 21st century. It is Tuesday, June 9th, and we have another day packed with huge news, so let's get right into it and get rolling. I figured in the circus of this show, we should probably start with the clowns. And today's clowns, played by Ben Shapiro, basically the conservative version of me, the weird kid in class who's smart but socially awkward and now has a podcast where he just kind of stammers through the whole show, and Clay Travis, a sports reporter for Fox News Sports. And if you follow me on Twitter, I've been sort of going after Clay Travis for saying that we were all overreacting to COVID and that you should actually just buy stocks because the market is amazing. Early on, every time we hit another 1,000 deaths, I'd tweet at him like, hey, still just the flu? They're ordering more refrigeration trucks since the bodies are piling up so fast. So he's a clown, but luckily this viral clip from Shapiro's show only had Ben talking. And in it, he's bragging about unsubscribing from Sports Illustrated since they put Caitlyn Jenner on the cover, and how this kneeling during the anthem stuff is going to take away football for him now. And he's basically saying he'll wait for another league to pop up that doesn't involve politics. So, alright, hold on here. Couple things. One, it's kind of weird that equality is a political idea, and people like Ben can just be equality. Ha, nope. Like, how is it a partisan issue? I think we should probably all want equality. Two, it kind of sounds like you're asking for a safe space, Ben, which you said was just for college libs who got their feelings hurt. Now, why am I explaining this side story to you? Because I want you to be able to have a good counter-argument when you meet someone like this in life, and rest assured, you will. Hey, speaking of safe spaces, you all know by now how I listen to the Never Trump Republican podcast, The Bulwark. Usually they're great, but yesterday they kind of fell back into their old ways, their default settings. And they went all the way back to the college lib safe spaces thing. Like, oh, people get their feelings hurt so easy nowadays. And they were talking about this in the context of the New York Times basically firing their opinion section editors for choosing to run that egregious, disgusting Tom Cotton piece calling for the troops to be called in to suppress peaceful protesters. And the host and the guest were saying that the opinion section is meant to be opinion and that this was censoring information. Their fatal flaw is thinking this would lead to open discussion instead of Trump supporters just taking it as fact, which they did. This opinion section hurt Hillary so bad in 2016, and they would probably try the same with Biden this time around if they had the chance. So I just don't get the argument at all. How is let's shoot our own citizens a place for healthy debate? Like if Mein Kampf was 2 paragraphs long, was the Times supposed to print it? Because it's just a difference of opinion? In air quotes there, I think you might have heard in my voice. Of course not. I don't know, just shooting from the hip here, but maybe we think about drawing the line at gunning down our own citizens? So again, why am I telling you all this? So you can counter these arguments when you see them pop up. This next story just makes me want to walk outside and scream at the sun, because apparently contact tracing from countries that actually believe in science shows that it is very rare to transmit coronavirus while you don't have any symptoms. Which we thought was the most dangerous part of this whole thing, this unseen devil. Now, if this is true, this will give people a lot more confidence to get back into restaurants and stores, and I really hope it's true. But I just cannot believe this sort of thing. Like, that's a huge thing to be wrong on. And it changes everything. Like, we may not have had to have such harsh measures taken if we had known that we only had to focus on sick people. But again, they could flip their opinion back next week if a new study comes out, just because all the scientists stress that there just isn't enough data yet to be completely sure either way. So definitely still be careful and act like you can still spread it even if you don't have symptoms. Now I'm going to group these next 5 stories into one big segment, and it is how George Floyd and the movement for justice for him is changing the entire world. First off, in New Zealand, the government decided to abandon plans for armed patrols because residents are nervous that it will lead to their police being militarized like ours. And that's just wild to me. The police aren't armed over there? That's just such a foreign concept to all of us here in the US. Like, the police truly are community servants over there. And one reason that I heard about why Canadian police are nicer, I think could transfer over to this, is that the percentage of people who own firearms is so low almost everywhere else in the world. So the police don't have to worry about their own safety every time they pull someone over. Like, there's not some kind of crazy person with a gun in their glove box. So a little bit of a side note, it just seems like it's a utopian universe over in New Zealand right now. No cops with guns, coronavirus cases at 0, literally 0, and their communities are worried about the possibility of police getting too militarized and discriminating against their citizens. Like, I don't know, man, New Zealand has their stuff together right now. Next up, back at home here, the U.S. military is open to discussions about renaming the 10 Army posts named after Confederate generals, after they said they weren't just this February. Over the weekend, they already issued commands to, quote, identify and remove the display of the Confederate battle flag or its depiction within workplaces, common access areas, and public areas on their installations. Now for me, just as an outsider looking in, don't all of these names and pictures of the battle flag in their workplace go completely against who the military is? Like the Confederacy literally tried to beat the crap out of you in order to protect slavery. So if you're supposed to be protecting America, doesn't a group who wants to break away from the US go completely against your whole ideology? I think this story was just a wake-up call for me and hopefully all of us to look around and question why anything related to the Confederacy is still up and worshipped. I don't really buy the whole idea that it's just history, because as many people have said, I kind of think history belongs in a museum, and these are just monuments that are keeping the idea alive. Our third story in this group is that IBM is completely pulling out of the market for general-purpose face recognition technology because they've been getting backlash saying it promotes discrimination and racial injustice. That seems like a big deal to me because I can only imagine how much money it took for the research and development to get facial recognition to the place it's at. And for them to just abandon it, that is incredible. Now, IBM is just one company, but they're a fairly large player in the tech space, so they could really be a trendsetter here. Our fourth story here is that in France, there have also been widespread protests. So the Interior Minister has announced that chokeholds are now banned from use by the police and that the technique will not be taught anymore at police academies. The minister said that, quote, no one should risk their life during an arrest, end quote. Wow, that's a concept, isn't it? There was an ongoing commission studying violence by police in France after several incidents over the last 4 years where people have died in their custody. And the people of France were accusing their police force of being racist, so apparently it is not just our police. Finally, wrapping up back home, New York City banned the chokehold as well in a vote of 140 to 3, and this bill was called the Eric Garner Anti-Chokehold Act. It makes any officer who injures or kills a person with a chokehold subject to a Class C felony which carries a possible sentence of up to 15 years in prison. All of these stories, these past 5 stories, and everything that's been happening around the world has made me think of this part from the end of Batman v Superman. So spoiler alert. There's this huge visual in his honor around the place they put the Superman symbol in the ground as a sort of memorial to him. But around it you can see someone wrote in chalk the quote, "If you seek his monument, look around you." Now I interpret that quote as the feeling Superman inspired in people, like just the character and the morals he inspired. But the more literal meaning comes from its origin, which is inscribed on the famous English architect Christopher Wren's grave because he was credited with designing so many buildings, including 52 churches. But I just kept thinking of this quote when I see everything that George Floyd started and the movement has continued all across the world. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before in my life, in my short time here. So as the funeral in Houston for George Floyd takes place today, if you seek his monument, look around you, because change is happening worldwide, and these protests are working. These are 5 absolutely huge stories, and they came about because of George and the movement. Another story I want to hit here today is that North Korea is cutting communication with South Korea in response to activists in the South who have been sending anti-government leaflets across the border. This whole thing just sort of continues the theme of no progress with North Korea after it was a huge deal for Trump, and then he just kind of gave up and we all kind of forgot. Remember when we thought nuclear war with Korea was going to be the worst thing possible? Good times. Good times. Lastly here, we are officially in a recession in the US, but as of right now, the stock market is soaring again today. So it's another good reminder that the stock market is not the same as the economy. Also, this reminded me that over the weekend, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced they made an error that undercounted unemployment. So instead of 13% unemployment, it was actually like 16%. You'll remember that I mentioned there was this conspiracy theory floating around as soon as the numbers came out, that Trump was actually artificially lowering the number. So I guess that's sort of true. I say that because this is like the second month in a row that they've made this same error, and it's just human nature to not make the same mistake so close together. Like maybe a couple months down the road, but not right after, especially not when you have this many eyes on you. So I'm just going to throw it out there that this was probably intentional, and either ordered by the infant-in-chief himself, or someone who wanted their weekend to be a little bit easier, which happens if Trump is happy. Oh boy, that was an incredible amount of stories, an incredible amount of news over the last day or so. But that is about it for now. Thank you to all of you listening out there. Remember, you can find us on social media pretty much anywhere at Quick News Daily. Don't hesitate to reach out about anything, and especially not if you have any feedback for the show, anything you'd like to see more or less. Again, feedback is most important because you, the listener, are most important to continuing the success of this entire show. Don't forget about the, I think, awesome list of benefits through Patreon or PayPal in order to help support the show. So check those out as well. And for now, I think that's it. So stay safe out there, and I will see you back here tomorrow.